times we had. I see it now, I see it now. Real love, now I break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out, I work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show. Afraid to say real love. Now I see you when I'm making through to find the life that we once had. I see it now, I feel it now. Real love, now I see you. Yeah, you know I do, to make it through the times we had. I see it now, I see it now. Real love, now I break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I work it out, I work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show.
And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. And I'll be running, possessed by a low, low voodoo. Fired up like a wolf on a full moon. And we're stuck in a la la land. The tides will turn without us. And I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me.
What's up, guys? What's going on? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is where you guys are tuning in from. How's everybody doing? Let me get the music off in the background, turn the desktop audio off. Getting better at this. Getting better at this. I'm just happy I look down now in the beginning and I don't realize that I've been on mute for, the first few seconds that I've been talking. So let me get the chat up. See how everybody is. It's a good morning for everybody, right? Bitcoin is up almost 4% on the day. most of the top 10 actually up. Actually, all of the top 10 up. And it looks like the only one that is not up significantly out of the top 10 is Tether. But that's an inside joke, right? That's not an inside joke. That should be obvious. Tether being a stable coin, right? If Tether is up, that is a problem, right? So how is everybody doing? Who do we have in here? LP, what's going on? Julian Luna. What's going on, Luna? PJW. All right. Frog the Frog, how you doing? Going to do some masonry work. That's awesome. Love masonry work. I love to do any work that I could do on my own, I prefer to do. And there was a period in time where I was pretty intent on the idea of me building an entire sort of backyard patio and barbecue on my own. And I never really got around to that yet, doing it on my own, to getting into some of my own masonry work. But yeah, when you don't have the time, you know, there are better people to pay to do those things, right? Sab, what's going on? Matt McCaffer, number go up. Very simple, to the point. I like that. Flip Mode Squad. Nice. Busta Rhymes, right? Pascal, what's going on, buddy? VLX, X Factor, Jack L. Roman, Jake, Marco, B-Town. Thanks for all the content direction guidance you provide. Thank you very much, B-Town. I enjoyed doing it. I apologize, guys, for not doing one on Wednesday. I know that the schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But unfortunately, I want to maintain the consistency of these streams, but I am primarily a trader. I'm a full-time trader, and I've been trading cryptocurrencies primarily for the last 3 years. So once a market starts once a market is moving, I have to be present. It's not that I have to be present, right? It's not like I'm deciding whether or not I want to have food for the week or trade. But it's a game that I enjoy playing. And, during a time like this, it's the equivalent of me being in a tournament or, really high stakes game. And I really prefer to be in the game rather than watching it. So unfortunately, that meant that that meant and might mean in the future, I should leave this open, that time to time, we decide to change up the time of the live stream. I think that today we'll be able to get away with it. I'm happy right now sitting flat outside of any kind of extra exposure positions besides spot. So I'm happy to let spot ride. And it's also Friday, and what you can see based on realized vol, we'll just go to, let me sign out and sign back in, because otherwise for some reason GVol has a little bit of an issue with that on my end. What we could see is that realized vol in terms of the last month, in terms of the last few months, it's pretty low on Friday. So actually, if you go back to the last since September, Friday and Sundays are one of the lower days in terms of volatility. So what I'm trying to say is, if you could pick any day to really to hop on a stream and to take time away from the market, why not on a day when volatility is low? Although today we could clearly see that is beginning to change. So I apologize for that. It wouldn't be a stream if I didn't constantly have to itch my nose or something. I have to fix this beard. That's what it is. Okay, so Marco, Frabbit, Christopher, ZUT. Is that a ticker right away? You hit me up with a ticker. I didn't even ask for tickers yet, and you're just throwing the ticker out there. Beach Ball, what's up? John, what's going on, man? Greetings from Amsterdam. Yeah, man, I'm absolutely down to go over ETH, BTC, and LTC. I think it's funny you say that, because I made a little watch list for this stream, and Litecoin is actually one of the things that I really want to talk about. And who hops in right now? D Speedwagon, what's going on, pal? He actually is another one that is interested in Litecoin as well, and I've since last night have been paying attention to Litecoin after almost writing it off, right? So slower work days on Fridays too. Yeah, Friday is like, in some parts of the world, Fridays is the weekend, right? It reminds me of going back to education days, formal education days, school in general, how Friday just didn't count. In college, everyone made it their goal to not schedule any classes on Fridays. So me, much like everybody else, my classes were from Monday to Thursday. Except for one computer science class that I won't forget, because that was scheduled on a Saturday. Okay, so let's see. Ripcord, how you doing, buddy? All right, so let me take a look at the stream health. And I call it the stream health because it is sort of Right now it's looking a little anemic. So we have a good amount of viewers. I like to see that, but the likes are pretty damn low with respect to the amount of viewers we have. So if each one of you can type on the keyboard, then you have the capacity to make one keystroke and hit the like button. And I would appreciate that, because apparently you like to watch this, and if you like to watch this, maybe other people would like as well. And you know what that means? You have to help us prioritize our engagement and our presence according to YouTube's algo standards, which means more likes, more eyes on the screen, and things get put front and center. So I know we have a long way to go, but we think that ultimately we are trying to be one of the leaders in this space, because there's a lot of garbage on crypto YouTube. Some of my peers from crypto Twitter, I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about, our guys like Crypto Cred and Don Alt and Karush and, Young Talopa. There's a few people that have YouTube content. I'm talking about the people that are strictly on YouTube. They have the ridiculous thumbnails. They try to gain your attention with crazy faces on their thumbnails. We're not about that at all. Non-sensational. When things suck, I'm going to tell you that they absolutely suck. When things are great, I'm going to tell you that they're great. I'm always going to kick you the real deal. So, oh wow, that worked. Look at that. This is not a dictatorship, guys, but I really appreciate the response with the likes. Okay, so let's see what we got. For anyone who's new, right, my name is Ryan. Okay, I go by Cantoring Clark on Twitter. Clark is the name of my favorite horse, not my wife's. And my partner, Josh Rager, you guys know him on Twitter as well. And we are the founders of BlockRoots, which is primarily a crypto trading and investment education platform. But we do these YouTubes. We put out a newsletter. So if you go to blockroots.substack.com for $9 a month, I don't even want to sell it to you. It's a great newsletter. When times are good, we're we have a pretty damn high hit rate. And when times are bad, we don't get to put out as many alt opportunities. And some people get a little upset about that. But I'm not just going to share charts for the sake of sharing charts. Like I said in the beginning, if things aren't looking good, then we're not going to be pumping out anything for the sake of pumping it out, right? So welcome, okay? And if you're not a subscriber already, if you go down to here, or actually it's right around here because it might be blocking my face right now, the watermark is the subscribe button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I hope it's not blocking my face. Is it blocking my face? That'd be a pain in the ass. That's all right. We're not worried about it. Okay. Let me see. Did anyone else step in? Okay, D. Ross, what's going on, buddy? Okay. Manchester. Devin, Mr. Blaney. Keld, what's going on, pal? Wouldn't be streaming without you here. Sweet Canary, Roman, Slovakia. Nice. Crypto is the absolute worst. I don't know what Crypto is, but I don't want to just inherit your belief on something yet without seeing it. But if it's a YouTube crypto person, then I could probably say that across the board they are pretty horrible. What's the name of the website behind you? So website behind you. This is Genesis Vol. So genesisvolatility.io. This is a platform I've been sharing for quite some time right now. It's primarily if you're interested in options activity. So you can see we're looking at skew charts right now, and we can change these over to delta buckets. And this is where, if you're interested in options, if you're just interested in these particular derivatives, this is a fantastic platform. We don't work with them directly. I've been talking to Greg and I believe Brandon now for since they started coming up with this platform. I was one of the first few people to start sharing it. We're not partners with them. I just, if something is good, I'll share it because I think that it could be beneficial to you guys. But again, this is primarily for options analytics. It's stuff that is a step above a lot of the things that we might be going over, with exception to a surface level probing of this stuff on the YouTube. Otherwise, we save this stuff. This is not something that I want to sit here and say, hey guys, I'm going to teach you how to trade options. We're not Tone Vase, okay? We're not charging $3,000 to teach you how to trade options, right? Options are not really necessarily my bread and butter. Have I been trading options for a really long time? Absolutely. but it's sort of like, have I been playing pro ball for a really long time? Yeah, but it doesn't mean that I could go from being, let's say, the left fielder. It always comes back to baseball. I don't even know why. It's so easy to use baseball. It doesn't mean that if I am a left fielder that I could suddenly tell you how to be a pitcher, right? We're all playing on the same field, but it's just not my area of competence. I trade Delta One. I trade futures. Again, I've used options before. I've used options as the same protective mechanism that a lot of people have, and essentially trying to hedge against downside risk, right? To take certain directional exposure. But again, this is not something we're going to get too far into. Eric Crown. I don't really know too much about Eric Crown, but yeah, like I said, I don't want to. If I'm not familiar with someone, I'm not just going to add them into that bucket indiscriminately. So let's take a look at the market really quick. Like I said, everything up. I have a few things that I want to touch on today. BlackRock, huge, right? So BlackRock, if you're not familiar with BlackRock, so here's BlackRock right here. This is an investment management company, the largest investment management company in the world. So I believe they manage $7.4 trillion in assets. So they have $7.4 trillion in assets under management. And Larry Fink is the head over there, but this morning, Rick Reidner, I think that's his name. He is the chief investment officer over at BlackRock. And he was comparing Bitcoin to gold and saying that essentially Bitcoin was a superior asset to gold. So let me just make sure I didn't screw up his name. Rick, let's just double check that, because God forbid, right? Let's see, BlackRock. I don't want to massacre anyone's name right now. Rick Reidner, that's awesome. Okay, so you see this on Pomp's page, talking about Bitcoin replacing gold. I think that this is, I think it's an inevitability. Like, for all of those who, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, right? I'm not someone who says that Bitcoin is going to change the world, right? It's going to, it's going to free the oppressed. I think that there are some fantastic aspects to it, but I think that right now it's time, right? I think that right now this is a longer trade. It's a macro trade. It doesn't become, and this is what I don't want anyone to become, and I definitely don't want to become this. I don't want to become like a Peter Schiff, right? Because there are gold bugs. Okay, there are people that are just so adamant about gold, and not only in a portfolio as just a portion of the portfolio, but being the most important thing for you to hold. So I don't want to become a gold bug by any means, right? You see how Peter Schiff is just completely embarrassing himself on social media. But I do think that it is so clear in the natural progression of things that gold is superseded or taken over by Bitcoin. All things going digital, right? Digital eventually, completely trumping anything analog, right? There's a place for analog things, right? But digital has been, it's been eating the world in a sense, right? And all things that can go digital and all things that are moving with technology, that's just the direction that things are going. So in a very first order way of thinking, it's kind of common sense, I would say, that something like Bitcoin is going to, it is going to be at the forefront, right? And if it's not going to be at the forefront, people absolutely do. They do really. Where's your chat? One sec. I almost lost you there. The people do value things that are tangible, right? I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. I have this kind of set up better now, so I can see the chat, and we don't have to switch between screens and fuck everything up. People do value tangible things. Like, absolutely, gold is important. Who is to say that the entire world does not shut down, a few years from now? We've seen it shut down this year. Who is to say that the infrastructure does not completely, go down? All these are very doomsday scenarios, right? But you can imagine that gold, tangible things, will have value in a doomsday scenario. That is the kind of thinking, though, that is just, it's the kind of thinking that belongs on Zero Hedge too much. I mean, it belongs on Zero Hedge. It doesn't belong in an everyday conversation. It's like we don't walk into a situation and suddenly entertain all possibilities, right? When you walk into a public space, do you immediately start thinking about everything that could happen and go wrong? No. So we're not thinking about, everything going wrong constantly within the market. We understand that there's a risk. We try to protect ourselves against these risks. The ones that are obvious, we keep them in the forefront. The ones that are maybe not so obvious, we at least acknowledge that they exist. And the things happen. You have tail risk events, you have tail events, you have tail risk exposure, and it is what it is, right? So the fact that BlackRock, though, is acknowledging Bitcoin is tremendous. What we've seen is that there's just a huge shift, and it's funny because this has almost become very self-fulfilling. You talk about something enough, and it becomes real. And the idea now that the institutions are coming, that's been like a stupid phrase that's been used for the last few years. The institutions are coming, the institutions are coming. And this was sort of paraphrased or parroted, excuse me, by people who are new to finance, right? They're first-time traders, first-time investors, and they come to crypto and they're like, the institutions are coming. Like, we can't wait for the hedge funds to come. And it's like, no, the hedge funds are here, right? They're trading against you. You don't want the hedge funds, okay? You don't want, unless they're a long-only hedge fund, okay? You don't want the fast money types. They don't do anything for the price, right? They help price discovery, but they don't necessarily help price appreciation the same way that someone does who is, a long-only asset manager, a pension fund, for example. What they're going to be doing is taking supply off the market. Now, the problem is they need a certain type of plumbing to exist before they're willing to step into the market, right? As obscure as this market is to someone who is brand new to it, think about it from the standpoint of someone who is managing $1 trillion, $1 billion. Are they willing to allocate to this with a significant portion of their portfolio? Not until everything is in place, right? Not until we fixed a few things, not until we've gotten rid of BitMEX, okay? Not until we've evened out the playing field to a degree. So it is true that now, obviously, you had a couple first movers. And this is the importance of this, right? So someone like Paul Tudor Jones gets involved. Stanley Druckenmiller coming out and talking about it. You have guys like Chamath Palihapitiya, and these visionaries have been talking about it for a long time. These are higher risk types in the beginning. Okay, that's the concept of risk reward, right? You're getting in early for more asymmetry to the upside, but you're taking on more risk. In the same sense, they're taking on career risk. Okay, so if you're a traditional asset manager, if you're a legacy type, you're taking on career risk because you're getting involved in something that is largely stigmatized and was seen as a bubble to begin with. So now that you have a bunch of people that have gone before you, right, the forefathers paved the way, and we talk about the asset managers, and I saw someone talk about this today, we need to not, wait 1 second. Did you find a 35-inch big enough? Slush. I have a 49-inch now. But on this setup, I have another setup, obviously not right here. But this is my primary setup right now. See, I'm getting out of tangent. I got to not look at the chat for a second. Yes, it is awesome that these larger players are coming. And of course, we do need to recognize the sort of cypherpunks that paved the way first. That saw value where no one else was willing to look and kind of went where no one else was willing to go, right? There is a certain pioneer aspect to that. And you have to look at those people and show them respect, because the people that held Bitcoin, and I have to say this because I was someone who, and there is a degree of this, right? There's a degree of luck to someone who got involved early and who bought an exorbitant amount of Bitcoin to where after it appreciated to a certain amount, maybe they sold half and they're willing to let the rest ride. And if you're letting the rest ride from $10, right, your cost basis is ridiculous. If you fall asleep enough nights not looking at the chart, you go from 10 to 1,000. It's a little bit easier at that point, I think, to hold on, right? After taking off half of that when you've already made a couple $1 million, okay? But there is something to be said for believing in it this entire time, because it hasn't been easy, right? And I think that's the thing I really want to focus on. It hasn't been easy. I was very much the man, it's sort of like the quote, the man in the arena. It's not the spectator who counts. The person who is on the outside, and for a long time I was like, Bitcoin's stupid, There was someone who believed in it from that point on, and kudos to them, because really I should thank them, right? I should thank them because there has been this Lindy effect that has helped Bitcoin. There has been this continued adoption and belief by these original people that has helped get it to this point now, right? Enough mouths talking about something. It's a game of, it's just everything becomes contagious at that point when it comes to technology that ultimately has a place in the world, right? And this clearly does have a place in the world, and I call it technology because I think it is technology. Okay, so BlackRock is huge, okay? If Larry Fink was to come out and say something, that would be, the spark to light the entire fire. I would say at this point, the fire is lit. But, what we're going to see over the next coming months, and I'll get on from here, what you're going to see over the next coming months is this is just going to be sort of the status quo. You're going to see, XYZ asset manager comes out and files paperwork to start establishing, a cryptocurrency allocation in their private placement memorandum or their offering documents. and pension fund comes out, who knows what it is, but I think, regardless of who it is, you're just going to see that continuously there will be, right? There will be, big traditional types in the space that come out. And the last person that comes out and that gets in Bitcoin, and when you sell, is when Warren Buffett gets in, obviously. So I'm just kidding, right? Warren Buffett is so after this, we'll get on to the next point. Warren Buffett, show the guy respect, right? There's a tendency in crypto to hate on someone who maybe doesn't understand Bitcoin, but the guy has hit more home runs than anyone right? So show him respect. That's like, it's just a stupid argument. He's a really old guy. He knows what he knows. It's not his area of competence, but he's knocked it out of the park more than anyone that we know. So, for that reason, let's give him the amount of time that it takes to get comfortable and getting into something new. And what we know is, how do your grandparents feel? If you're lucky enough to have your grandparents still around, how do they feel about anything that's new, right? They're like, whoa, 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 get that away from me. Like I like the old way of doing things, and that behavior sort of translates to other areas as well when it comes to investment decisions too. So a lot more conservative in that sense. Okay, so let's see. Spot trading at all right. So let me go through all these, and I'll. Okay, we want the pensions. Yes, we do. Do you think these clampdowns on crypto exchanges we're seeing, BitMEX, OKX, are the regulatory bodies clearing? So I think that, Brendan, I think that they are, right? I think that ultimately, let me get to a trading view chart so we can get on to the next stuff. I think that they are, right? If you're a traditional, if you're the CME, if you're a traditional player, wife texting me, hold on one second, your safety contact for your next horse, ride. Okay, so Equilab is something. My wife is on trail right now, and I just click into this, and I can see where she is on trail, because if she goes on trail by herself, it's always good to. Trails are actually huge, so it's a entire state park. But so anyway, let's see. So the exchanges, the clampdowns we're seeing, I think so. I think in a lot of ways, if you're a traditional, if you're a major player within the traditional space, if you're the CME and you know that things are moving in the direction of adoption by more institutional types, more legacy types, you're going to look at who is controlling price discovery right now, or who is one of the major potential market manipulators, and you're going to be like, okay, government, can you get rid of that for me? Because they're going to want to, again, I've said this before and try to simplify it in these terms. Like, if they're going to come play, they're going to play by their own rules. We're going to play on their field to some degree, right? Bitcoin and crypto obviously is decentralized, so you do that to an extent, but they're going to look to take off the head of the dragon right now, okay? But there's many heads in crypto, right? It's like a hydra. So I think that the clampdowns are part of that. I think that they're going for the market leaders for sure, for good reason, right? It makes sense. And I think that the CME is going to be leading by volume by this time next year. So if anyone's watching the stream wants to tag this, I think that by next year, this time, the CME will be leading by open interest. We'll say open interest, right? Who knows about how random cryptocurrency is going to wash trade and fake volume on their exchange. But in terms of open interest, they will be leading by open interest. So, okay, we want, right, GBTC and ETH are available on IRA accounts. That's right. Spot trading at a $40 discount to perps. Let's take a look at that. Right now, spot is trading in line. Okay. So this is going to be something I'm going to touch on. In this trend is approaching a point where you're going to see futures start to really, there's going to be a lot of back and forth between the futures and the spot prices. So what I go to reference right away is I'll reference Bybit, BitMEX, and Coinbase. You can see that on this right now, I have BitMEX and Coinbase just to get an idea of one of the leading perps. Even though BitMEX was clamped down on, there's still a good amount of activity to observe in terms of order flow, in terms of volume, or whether the market is leading or lagging when it comes to the spot relationship. So when it comes to a basis between spot and futures. So you could look at Bybit as well, right? So these things are normally in line though. So I just have one set up. So as the market moves further up, we're going to see that more people want long exposure on top of the long exposure they have. So of course they're going to lever up. So you're going to see that funding is actually going to be trading more consistently above. All right, so let's go to bookmarks real quick. Okay, so what we're going to see is that funding is going to be kind of elevated. moving forward. So we could see that right now on FTX, let me get my drawing tool back on. So FTX, Binance, 3 basis points. All right, so so if anyone is familiar with basis point, it's 100th, it's a, 1/100th of a percentage, right? So think about it as, 3 basis points is 3% of 1%, right? So 3 basis points, 3 basis points, okay. This is 11 basis points on Bybit. All right, coin margin perpetual is a bit more liquid, I think, so I think we're worth paying more attention to. But again, Binance about 5 basis points, Bybit rounded up, you have about 4 basis points. So you're going to see that these are going to be trading slightly above, all right, the spot. Moving forward, when things start kicking off, all right, this is going to be where the behavior, I think, is going to shift. So on the moves up, it's going to be dangerous to call it too early by saying that the futures are trading at a premium to the spot. So for those of you that are new, premium to spot, meaning if we look at the futures price, okay, which is at 688 right now, and we look at the spot, it's at 690. So right there, spot is trading at a premium to futures. There's a basis, okay, there's a positive basis. If the futures are trading above the spot, that means that the spot is trading at a discount. So spot is trading below, right? So in a lot of these conditions where market is ranging, we'll use this to determine whether or not the market is getting crowded in one area, whether or not the spot demand is there. There's a spot bid, which is always, something that you want to look for as a leading indicator. But as we move forward, what we're going to see, my point is that base is going to increase. You're going to see that in the periods up, there's going to be periods where futures are trading $30, $40 above the spot price. And this is going to be representative of a time that is kind of overheated, but the market is going to be consistently overheated, right? After a break of all-time high, it's going to be very clear to a lot of people that this is a market worth longing. Now, people that are inside of crypto, how do they get more long exposure? They use leverage, right? They increase their exposure. They don't just use leverage for counterparty risk. So, what is the incentive on a futures exchange for someone to take the opposite side of the trade? If the whole market wants to be long, who wants to get run over? Well, you have to incentivize people. So you have to pay them a certain amount to open up a position in opposition to what the dominant trend is. And that's the purpose of the funding mechanism. It's an incentive mechanism for someone to take the opposite side of the trade, right? So you're going to see that this is going to be quite extended because people want upside capture. They want increased upside capture. And the funding is an interest rate component. So they're going to be paying to receive that. So the perpetual swap, the idea is that it's a future that doesn't expire, but make no mistake, a perpetual swap is not something that you should hold indefinitely. If you want really long exposure in terms of timeline, use linear futures contracts, right? Where you don't have this funding mechanism, you don't have this interest rate component, and you don't have to worry about the position decaying over time. Because when things get hot, okay, when things get really hot, when the funding is really high, annualized funding, theoretically, right, over a long enough timeline could actually liquidate your position. Okay, this is obviously something that is not most likely going to be a reality for anybody. But if you have a funding that is, let's say, 25 basis points, which has gotten up there before, right? It gets very extreme. Annualize that value, and you're going to have tremendous decay on your position over a couple months, right? Over the course of a year, you could be talking about serious drawdown, right? If you were to hold that position on. And if that position didn't continue to accrue value or increase in value that superseded that amount. So there'd obviously be a delta between those two. Okay, just finished David Goggins. So one last thing. I think this is important to touch on. So how now can we also look at funding, though, even though part of it is less useful? I would say that if you have pullbacks, though, what do we definitely want to look for in the pullbacks? I think that in the pullbacks, so let's say that market pulls back here, you want to see that spot lead shows back up. So you get a pullback back down here. You want to see that the spot difference, if not greater than the futures, okay, is equal. So you at least want to see that the spot is maintaining or is trading slightly above the futures, just to indicate that the spot demand, the most important demand for the asset, is there, right? So futures are always going to overextend. We want to take advantage of the times when futures overextend in one direction, but the market doesn't move. So, you have market that's stuck right here, bang, 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 and instead the futures price is going up. So it's gone up over this period of time. The market has been ranging. It's just an indication that someone might be getting caught off sides. And that is primarily how I build my trading approaches to the market, from the low time frame to the high time frame. It's recognizing who is getting it wrong in that moment, who is getting it wrong in the moment on the 10-2 reversal chart on the low time frame in a small rotation, and who has gotten it wrong for a really long time over a larger area. Baseball analogy king. Yeah, dude, I don't know what it is, VLX. I don't know what it is. I grew up with baseball, right? I had to play baseball when I was a kid. It's sort of like you're born in New York, you know, your dad's your baseball coach. I played baseball until I got into high school, and then I was, you know, I switched primarily to the sports that, you know, when you get in high school, you really focus on one sport, and I was a four-season athlete. So I focused on wrestling and lacrosse. Got into golf a little bit later, but just left baseball. But I still play. I actually still play a summer league with my dad. So, but it's not like, you know, it's competitive, right? Because it's like a 40. It's like most of the guys are like 40 to 60. It's a lot of fun, but it always comes back to baseball. I think it's the easiest one for me to just pick up on. All right. So, do you have any books, tips, autobiography reckon? So, Money and Power. I haven't. I'm not too familiar with that. Let's see. David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. That's a great book. You know, I put together a list of books for people that ask for book recommendations all the time. Let's see. So, what books are really good? Okay, One of my favorite books. One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. But in terms of trading, Mind Over Markets, Markets in Profile. Let's see, what other one is great? Flash Crash, I recommended that. The Misbehavior of Markets. Fooled by Randomness is great. Thinking Fast and Slow, that's a phenomenal one. We have a big bookcase in the other room, but I have I have my trading stuff all above my trading setup. What else is good? Ray Dalio's Principles. Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. That's like going back to all the Warren Buffett stuff that you should still know. Prisoner's Dilemma, right? Game theory, very important. Okay, Diary of a Very Bad Year. There's so many books that you could read, but I think that the most important one to read would be Thinking Fast and Slow. What's your take on ETF? What's going on, Stan? Where you been, man? What's going on? We not friends anymore? I haven't seen you, I haven't talked to you in a few days. ETF. I don't think an ETF is necessary. I don't think an ETF is necessary. It's funny because these publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy, they're essentially becoming a Bitcoin ETF by putting so much Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And here's what I think also, and then we'll get into the charts because I know I do this all the time. I think that every new company now, you know, you IPO, you're a new company, you're the hot new company. You know, what are you going to be putting on your balance sheet moving forward? Are you going to be warehousing treasuries, or are you going to be warehousing Bitcoin? I think that you're going to see what MicroStrategy did a lot moving forward, especially by new sort of disruptive companies because it's cool, right? You have to realize that there are some really dumb behaviors that are predictable that you can play on as an investor, okay? You might not think something is cool, but you know that 10 of your friends do. You buy that thing, right? Because you don't give a shit about your own opinion, but you know that everyone else really values that thing. Okay, and I've seen this happen so many times before with things that I didn't think were going to take off, but it was so clear that everyone was using them, adopting them, and I think this sort of cool factor of Bitcoin is going to be more apparent in a lot of the new companies that we see moving forward. Okay, Skin in the Game, great book. Skin in the Game is great. That's by Taleb, and you know, Black Swan absolutely as well. Poor Charlie's Almanac is a great, amazing read. Order book heat maps. I don't personally use heat maps. It doesn't cost to place a bid or an offer, so you don't pay anything to put that up. There's a lot of spoofing that's involved. I don't personally think that they're necessary. There are people that use them successfully, though, just like everything. You know, were you trading in 2016, 2017 out of interest? I was trading in 2017, but I had a very passive approach to the market at that point because I was full-time trading traditional markets. So mine was more of this market is trending, and I think the trend is about to turn, and I was bearish most of 2018, and I was publicly bearish pretty damn successfully too. And then I think worked out to my favor. I think I built a following off of that, and then I started turning bullish, and they didn't turn too. Yeah, I saw something that looked like penny stocks and needed a big correction for all of the smaller assets, and I saw Bitcoin as something that definitely had a future, but needed to correct as well. As a former baseball player, nice, J.A., nice. Yeah, I was a catcher, and I was a catcher. I played right field, and I sucked as a pitcher. So I started as a pitcher. I played right field, and I was a catcher too. And I really wish I wasn't a catcher because my fucking knees hurt. Is Ripple a good investment? Flooding for 5 years. Okay, So, I don't think Ripple is. I think you got to do your research on Ripple. All right, Mastering the Market Cycle. Read that by Howard Marks. I also read his newest book. Howard Marks by Oak Tree Capital Management is one of my favorite people in traditional markets. Okay, so let's look over some charts. So the first thing I want to talk about, because this has kind of come up recently, and let's go to today's list. All right, so let's go to, that is not, where's today's list? What did I make as today's list? More recently, today's live stream, is that it? No, because I wouldn't have XRP in it, that's for sure. All right, did I not save it? Did I not save it? All right, that's okay. It is, we'll keep the red list because that'll have most of this stuff anyway. But we have to add Litecoin because that's the thing I want to talk about. Okay, so Litecoin. And I hope these, so we'll see. Maybe I just didn't save anything. Didn't save it because I got rid of all the drawings on the chart. I want to go over everything fresh. Okay, so Litecoin. All right, so Suzu. Let's talk about Suzu because he is he's someone who you don't fade, put it that way. So Suzu, what does he say about Litecoin? Okay, he says about Litecoin over here, I think LTC will flip an XRP. I agree with you, Sue. All right, most Lindy proof of work. Okay, so what is, where'd the chat go? Hold on one sec. Okay, I'm trying to, let me put this, okay. All right, so what is, one sec. What is the Lindy effect? All right, so with Lindy, all right, if something continues surviving into the future, it has a higher probability of continuing to survive in the future. So just in very simple terms, the life expectancy of something is dependent on the life or historical time period that it's been around, right? Whatever you want to consider, up until that point. So the idea of, hey, this has been around long enough and it's not dead yet, it must be something good. This obviously does not apply to everything. But what he's saying is that this is the most Lindy proof of work alt. Okay, so my experience with Litecoin, all right, and I've gone over this before, and I have the PayPal page up for this because PayPal is adding Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum. So I have felt more recently that Litecoin has been lagging everything. Okay, that it is very much behind in terms of going through its major move, right, or making a major move, and this has obviously changed in the last week. Okay, but for the longest time, Litecoin you could say was bottoming, right? But it just looked sort of, as I've said this, I've used this term before, it looked listless, right? I used Litecoin when I first came to crypto. Litecoin was like, as I said last night, it was like the taxi between exchanges. It was the fastest way to get from point A to point B. You didn't want to send Bitcoin, right? If you bought Bitcoin on Coinbase, and I was trading at the time on Binance, right? So I'm on Coinbase Pro and I'm on Binance. When I came in, you send Bitcoin to Binance and you're looking back like 10 hours later wondering where the hell it is, right? You send Litecoin, it was like 17 to 28 minutes, which is, that's during a time when there's a lot of volatility and you're in a higher beta asset, that's dangerous, right? But this was something that I thought was a great method of getting from exchange to exchange. And the idea was, Litecoin was the silver to Bitcoin as gold, okay? So now, with gold, digital gold being recognized by all people now, right? So not just retail, not just early adopters and early believers, but with the institutional types, Litecoin could very well see this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy come true of where it is a payment mechanism. So, it being listed by PayPal, right? That's a great sign. Litecoin being available on these other traditional platforms as well. There's a few of them that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it is it's the boring pair that just does its job, right? So this, I think, is something that will benefit from retail flows because, again, it's all about, a lot of it is about narrative. So if you have retail coming into the market and they hear the concept of, oh, that's digital gold and this is digital silver. Oh, silver has a higher beta to gold. There's going to be more upside for this. It's going to be more volatile. This moves faster, right? It has this sort of boring lore to it where it hasn't died, right? It's been around for this long. I think that you could very well see, and this is before even looking at the chart, you could very well see there be some tailwinds. Right? There will be some wind in our sails with Litecoin. I am not in a position with Litecoin right now, but it is looking very interesting, and I think that anything that Sue gets in, anything that Kyle gets in, these guys just have a ridiculous public hit rate. It's not like, a Goldman Sachs coming out and saying, we think that Facebook is a buy, and then you know what that means. Like a month, the month that follows, Facebook is a sell, right? These are guys that have been public about their positions, and everything has gone up that they've mentioned. They're giving out free alpha, and of course, I'm sure it's a fill before shill thing, but they're privy to things in a way that most people are not, right? And they're just, they're incredible traders, and they run 3 Hours Capital. There's plenty of things you could say in terms of accolades about those two. So Suzu saying this about Litecoin, I think that it just adds more validity to what the chart is actually showing right now. And again, PayPal, this is not like XYZ random cryptocurrency exchange that is listing Litecoin, and it's like, who cares, right? This is old. This is one of the pairs that is no longer in the limelight. Well, PayPal listing it is huge, right? PayPal is massive. So this could very well be something that is very popular. And again, still maintains that narrative. And, if you're a believer in the Lindy effect, there is something to be said for being around this long and not continuously putting in lows, because I think that qualifies something as a survivor in this market right now if it hasn't continued to put in lows, because you've seen that a lot of the major pairs that are really just garbage now, maybe if not for small bounces, have not gone in to maintain any level of higher time frame support. So I think I'm going to look at the charts now, because we've gone over some of the stuff that I wanted to go over. I think we did, right? BlackRock news. So let's look at the charts, and let's start with LTC, right? So let me get rid of the funding rates, get rid of BlackRock, CoinGecko. Let's start with LTC. And I'm leaving these charts naked for a reason. Okay, so I just want to map out the important contextual levels that will indicate to us that there is a contextual shift, right? That things are changing. If you hear context a lot, you think that you hear context is the most important thing, right? Context is everything in the backdrop. Context is the greater trend. Context is what's happening outside of just what you're looking at, all right? So in terms of just structure, though, we have major lows that stand out on this chart, major pivot highs, okay? You have a rounded bottom right here. I would not consider getting involved in anything, as many of you know, until we've retaken a previous level that has served as resistance on the weekly chart. So right now you have what looks like not only one weekly level being done away with, but Litecoin is right now approaching its 84.32 level against USD, which is the last rotation on the weekly chart going back to January 2020. That is the last rotation's high. At this point, all you're doing right now is showing that the higher time frame trend is changing. So for me, this is an automatic signal to pay attention. This is sort of, again, I've gone over this many times before in the live streams. This is how I filter out what I am even willing to pay attention to, because I want to have a watch list that is very from the beginning, that is filtered. Right, that immediately I know, okay, there's not a few things on this list that I think are worth looking at, maybe, and then a few things that I think are really solid picks. No, this list is only dedicated to things that are retaking previous levels that we traded at and that serve to reject us on the higher time frame. Okay, story's changed now. Now we're back above that level where we were rejected. Clearly now there's less supply and buyers are doing a better job of bidding this up. So in terms of Litecoin, I think that support is now at 63. The problem right now is saying, okay, you have higher time frame support at 63 and you're going to get a pullback there. This trend is so strong that I think that a lot of times you have to buy these slightly higher than where that higher time frame support level will be. So right now we're in a good area to just wait, because I think that you're at higher time frame resistance again. We're closer to resistance technically, so I would want to see the level of response that we have off this. So if we consolidate and we start breaking down, I would look to place bids within, let's say, around these last lows, this last high, down to 63. Okay, I wouldn't expect that you get down to 63, so I'd probably spend the bulk of, or dedicate the bulk of my activity to around 73, 68, between that little window. So you're looking at this little consolidation down here. So if you're rejected at this high, I would consider picking up between there, leave some stink bids there. But I think that as long as the rest of the market is moving up, now looking at how this higher time frame chart is beginning to shift, let me just change this. I think that your target is back up here. So 136, it won't take much to get the market moving in this direction once you retake this level. So you get a pullback back here if you get a pullback, right? Otherwise, what you could say is that that's just the high. That is really just the high of the extent of that rejection. So really now we're actually above, we're above weekly close. there is an argument for getting long up here, right? So there is an actual argument for getting long up here. I just don't think that you would want to have, so spot exposure is maybe not such a bad proposition, because again, you're above that resistance, but the weekly hasn't closed out yet, though there's only 2 days left. This is a really touchy time because, this is a time where I said to last night, someone, hey, you can buy resistance. And sure enough, last night I bought uni at resistance, closed out an awesome trade in profit, bought uni again today. It went against me. So we're going to talk about that. That is what happens when Bitcoin goes to all-time highs, what's going to happen to everything else. But I think that Litecoin is good to start building position actually in this general area. So you're above that weekly level. So that weekly level, specifically the weekly close of the last weekly rotation upward, is at 79. So you're above that now. Starting to build a position would not be the worst idea, right? Because I think that ultimately, I think at least a month, 2 months from now, and this is just an arbitrary amount of time that's comfortable enough to say with a level of certainty, I think that we're coming back up here. So I think we're coming up to 120, between 120 and 136. If everything else has wind in its sails, then I don't see why Litecoin wouldn't, especially now since it's sort of a lagging play, right? The market is becoming privy to the fact that this has yet to move and it's starting to move. I think it's going to start gaining some momentum. So now would be a time if you guys want to share some of your charts. Otherwise, I'm going to go through what I think is worth paying attention to. I'm going to cut out some of this stuff because we're going to take this off and we're going to add the charts that I thought I added originally. So LTC, we went over that. Wi-Fi, that's very extended. I don't really want to look at that yet. Uni. Okay, let me get rid of, so Sushi is one that I wanted to keep. SNX is one. That's the one I make fun of. Centivate, MTA, get rid of. Link, good. ETH. Okay, so we have pretty much everything I wanted to look at. The DeFi perp, the Uniswap perp, these are good indexes to look at to judge the health of the market sectors as a whole. And sort of like using this with ETH BTC is a good combination to judge whether or not it's time to get into alts or time to play some of the momentum in alts. One thing I want to talk about first, though, before I get into some of the charts that you share. So BTC, where it's at, right? We're very far away from a contextual level of support, okay? I think that we're coming up to the all-time high. Now, I've taken all my levels off this chart. I'm going to reestablish new levels, right? We'll map out the levels for mapping out the sake of the levels, but right now this trend is ridiculously strong, and I think that it only has one place that it's trying to go, which is the all-time high, which begs the question of, what do you want to be in? Do you want to be in alts when Bitcoin breaks the all-time high? Personally, I don't want to, right? Personally, the only thing that I will be in is my allocations to Aave and SNX, right? And so I'll have ETH, Aave, SNX, and BTC. But I am almost 90% allocated to BTC when you compare the portions for how much Bitcoin I have and how much of those respective assets I have. So the thing about, and I went over this a few times, and we've seen this morning, I got in a uni long this morning, and I got in a uni long last night. Okay, the last night one worked perfectly. This morning, what happened was Bitcoin started moving up and you started seeing uni sell off. We actually started seeing this across all pairs. So if we go to all pairs right now, Aave started selling off. We go to Link started selling off. Not selling off, but what we're talking about is just there's a level of responsiveness immediately in the stronger pairs. Okay, so this does not bode well for pairs that are currently not in the limelight and currently not market leaders. And these pairs I'm sharing right now are market leaders. So there is a very quick knee-jerk response to Bitcoin moving up. And I've mentioned this before, how in this pocket up here, right, in this little vacuum, there's going to be a lot of sensitivity in terms of upward price action for Bitcoin and how sensitive our assets are to Bitcoin's upward price action. So the closer that we get to the all-time high, the more FOMO that people are going to have who are currently tied into other positions. They're going to be looking at Bitcoin like it's leaving the station. So you're going to have this sort of vacuum effect where liquidity is going to be pulled out of assets and it's going to be allocated to BTC. And I think it's going to create a big overthrow in Bitcoin. Maybe that gives you a temporary blow off top. Either way, when we cross this zone, that is like the event horizon, right, for the black hole, right? That is the point in which no light escapes. I think that at this point, no matter what alt you're looking at, the strong alts right now should hold up decently, but most alts I think will nuke. Okay, so if you have a chart right now that looks really strong, let's say that it's an alt and the alt is at higher time frame support now. It's flipped, higher time frame resistance into, we love pink, don't we? higher time frame resistance into higher time frame support. If this is your alt right now, and you're thinking this is strong, and Bitcoin goes on to break the all-time high, right? What's the point of even drawing if you're going to draw that shitty? If that is your alt, okay, expect your alt to do this. That is just how the market behaves when Bitcoin is in this sort of sensitive position. And again, this is something that will, I think, be relative to how thin the asset is, right? So thinner alt is obviously going to experience more downside. I think the stronger pairs should hold up better. But if something is directly connected to Bitcoin, so if there's a Bitcoin pair, and some of the DeFi stuff might be safe because some of the DeFi stuff doesn't have this Bitcoin conduit where it can go, directly into Bitcoin. But things that can go directly to Bitcoin. So if I'm in, Tezos, I'm going to immediately get out of Tezos and go to BTC. It's really easy to do that. If you're on a Uniswap pair that has no Bitcoin connection, right, and it's just an ETH pair, then you might not be able to actually get into Bitcoin the same way. So you might not see this level of reflexivity in these pairs. Doesn't mean I would want to be in them, right? I wouldn't suddenly go like, oh, let me go pack into DeFi pairs because they might not experience the vacuum in the same way. But I think that Bitcoin is going to nuke a lot of pairs. And regardless of whether or not you really think that they're strong, I think that I would personally consider, right, just keeping myself in those two really strong pairs. I've decided on and off, do I want to be in Link? Do I want to be in, ETH? I will, right? But I was going on and off between Aave and SNX and Rune at one point, and I think I said Link already. But I will just keep my Aave position. I will just keep my SNX position because I think those might have a response but immediately recover. Other things, I want to see how they respond in the time that Bitcoin, we're talking when this happens. So I just think it's better to prepare for it. In the time shortly thereafter, I want to see certain things begin to gain ground again before I'm confident to get back in them. Because again, this will create a vacuum, and you're starting to see this sort of touchy way that the market is right now, with Bitcoin beginning to move up slightly higher, right? So let me take your charts now. Let's just take a look at, so now we do have it's a $10 basis, but nothing significant. In terms of Bitcoin, we'll just start with this first, right? So Bitcoin, your weekly levels. So these prior weekly levels, we've gone over these before. These are just like constructs in your head, okay? There's no real, I think, actual mechanical significance to these positions from any kind of positions prior. I think it's just psychological resistance. You can see it really didn't do anything in this move right here, right? You had that initial response, but it hasn't been significant whatsoever. Significant supports below us, going all the way back down here, right? First weekly levels going all the way back down here in this type of strong market. And I want to make sure I change the colors of these. I don't want to talk about these like they're necessarily going to happen, but you just have to consider them, right? In this type of really strong market, you do have to look at the wicks, right? Because ultimately you're going to see that dips will be shallower in a really strong market. So if you're looking at, next obvious structure, a lot of times you're just going to get front run. Just have to point these out, right? You have to be aware of your higher time frame levels on the chart, regardless of how you feel about the trend. You can see that these levels have been significant, right, on the way up. Okay, so consolidating at that high of 2019, nuke that, to the upside, consolidating at that next level that we pointed out, that again, more psychological level than anything else. Not like it has any kind of, not like it has any kind of order flow memory that is still sort of sitting and resting on the books, waiting for a return back to that level. But in terms of support, we don't have really hardcore support below us. And that's the danger of a move like this, right? When you have a move that, when you have a move like this, that has created a range that is moving sideways, really defined highs, really defined lows, and then you choose a direction, right? So in this case, we broke down, found support at this level, and then broke through that with a force. If we come back down to this, I'd say, yeah, absolutely going to find a response from there, right? No matter how you cut this, no matter what, I think that you're going to have a response back down at this level at some point. Whereas these levels, when you have them where they're consolidating upward, they are uninterrupted on the downside, right? So it hasn't been a case of price making the same low. It's been a case of price making higher lows. So this was a kind of consolidating behavior before a squeeze upward, and some people call that vertical accumulation. It's dangerous because it's fragile, right? You have stops that are below these levels. So any kind of, perturbation of the first one Any kind of, I think, touch into that area is sensitive because you could get that cascade where it's that domino effect into the lows. And a lot of the times what you see is these kind of structures, when you revisit them, you just nuke them quickly. And it might not mean that you don't find support here, but a lot of times the support that comes from that looks like this. You nuke the level and then you find a balance. But it's after you get the run of that liquidity, because it just becomes a cascade. It's mechanical at that point. It's like it's built into the system. It is a function of just stops that are left here and are dormant at this point that are still resting in case we revisit them. It usually happens that we move pretty quickly through them. So expect that, I think, if you get a revisit down to that area. Now the threshold for that is this high. So I think if you just mark out this on the daily, you get an idea of where that begins. So anything back below 16, let's say 16.2, because that's this low, I think that starts getting into the danger zone. And the danger zone means if you have a position, right, just expect first the wick to happen before you start to reconsider, all right, now this is a good dip to buy. If you see that it's holding here, I wouldn't want to just buy the first test of that. I would just let it sit for a second, and a second, who knows what that means? It means allowing it to first develop good price action and good base before considering, okay, the coast is clear. Because you could get a bounce here initially and then consolidation that ends up nuking it and then a recovery, and you just don't want to be part of that. So next levels on the daily, right? It's just some of your daily levels. You have that pivot right there. And other than that, it's not that there's very strong levels to the downside, which does make this kind of it's a twiggy kind of vertical structure, which is, hey, it is dangerous, right? So you could get a very deep pullback from where we are. And I would say that at some point you have to expect it, right? At some point, we're going to expect a really violent kickback by the market. It doesn't just let everyone ride freely. I'm hesitant about adding to any position up here for that reason, right? I'm very confident, but it's one of those moments where I say, you're going to wish that you weren't at the screen for that week because it'll be violent, but then it should recover. Looking at some other really strong pairs, Aave. So Aave is something that I've established many times before that I have a significant spot position in this. Aave, if we're looking at this, is just clearly, do I think that this thing is going to make a double top? No. Aave right now, I would say that higher time frame support is down at 58. So even if this pulls back significantly, I think you have that higher time frame support, and that really is just from this weekly level. So let me auto chart that. That's from this weekly level back here. All right, which once you gain acceptance back into a prior weekly consolidation, so once we gained acceptance back above this, you're looking for these highs, period, right? So that's just a longer term swing trade. But right now, if this consolidates now anywhere above 58, I think I'll look to add to this position. It's just something that has been very strong this entire time with Bitcoin. And you have to keep mind of these pairs and that they're the DeFi blue chips, right? These are the things that have shown tremendous signs of strength, and they're probably going to continue to show signs of strength moving forward, not just from a momentum aspect, but from the fact that they are actually representative of things that are quite transformational in terms of DeFi. Link could have a knee-jerk response, right, when Bitcoin starts breaking up towards the all-time high, but Link has just shown continued signs of strength. So for me back here was when I started building a spot position. I since exited that like a dummy, right? Since exited that, but it retook that level. This would be your next higher time frame level of resistance. It's just turning resistance into support, right, and continuing to flip these. What it's turning resistances into are not necessarily areas to pull the positions off, but maybe just to manage. So you might consider taking a little bit off and then re-adding on a dip, right, or just starting to maybe compound the position to monitor the position, but not completely say I'm going to TP at higher time frame resistance, because we see that the entire market has sort of wind in its sails right now. And I said this yesterday to someone when they were asking, I was saying that longing resistance right now in terms of uni, and this was back down at this point, I longed uni at, for those of you that are, so I longed uni at, where was my first long? One sec. At 1381. Okay, so 1381, I longed uni. So that was right around here. And I was talking about longing this, and this was your resistance right here at it wasn't 13, excuse me, 381. I was under higher time frame resistance so still under that. But I thought that there was a good opportunity to play that short-term burst in activity because the rest of the market was moving up as well. So my idea with uni is it's the same with everything else. We are at I'm covering these kind of quickly, but then I'm going to go over the ones that you guys are asking about. With Uni, it's the same thing. I think it's a DeFi blue chip. You're at higher time frame, what will be higher time frame resistance, but we've been consolidating against it, right? We made a move back down to this low, tested that successfully, right? So the first thing first, remember my alts, how I sort of identify what is worth getting involved in. If we don't have a good weekly chart yet, I look at the daily. So back above a major weekly level, start looking for the long, right? Trend is beginning to change. The wind is in our sails. The wind is at our back. Now again at higher time frame resistance, but consolidating there. So we retested the prior consolidation in this expansion up. You're sort of pinched between a rock and a hard place, but in this kind of environment, in this context, hard place to the upside usually gives way. So I think that this consolidation, while it might occur a little bit longer, I think that Uni is at least coming up to $5, right? So Uni is something that I have my eyes on. I've been in and out of it. I gave back a good amount of my trade, honestly, this morning because Bitcoin was moving up and I was in another long. So I gave back a good amount of my position, but it is what it is. You win some, you lose some, right? Let's see. I want to look at some of your questions. Okay. 30% pullback at 20K. All right, so Wi-Fi looks good. Yeah, Wi-Fi has been tremendous, right? So Wi-Fi has been tremendous. I took it off because it's extended now. I don't want to say that it can't continue to run, but given where it is now, at another higher time frame weekly level, given the nature of this trend, I would just rather see Wi-Fi have more of a consolidation before positioning again. So at least I could get a better opportunity to long some type of pullback. This is, again, it's just becoming kind of overextended. Doesn't mean it can't continue that way, but hey, that's just somewhere I won't get involved, right? There's always something else to trade. This is use Wi-Fi though as your barometer for the rest of the market. You have a higher time frame, consolidation, head and shoulders, whatever. Market made a low and then ripped up and put in a V-shaped reversal. So I think Wi-Fi is it's your NASDAQ for your tech stocks, right? It's a leading indicator of higher beta blue chips in DeFi. Do you think there would be a major crypto news announcement at all-time high level? Thinking some news is being held back. I don't know, Neil. That's I don't know. I don't know what could be said at that level. I think other than Bitcoin breaks the all-time high and then people bum rush into the market, I'm not sure. Can you look at Sell? Yeah, I'll look at Sell. I don't know what Sell is. Seller, right? It's an older pair. Binance ICO, right? So Sell. So first things first, weekly chart. Looks like shit. So weekly chart. So these old pairs, if they're not DeFi, if they didn't attach their name to DeFi in the last few months, they're going to kind of fall off the map, right? Until they, start changing and becoming, I don't know, until something fundamentally develops on their end. The whole flavor of the past few months has been DeFi. Some companies pivoted. Some companies suddenly did what, Long Island Beverage Company did, and they, in 2017, Long Island Beverage Company became Long Island Blockchain Company. And you know what? Their stock shot up ridiculously. And we see that companies take advantage of major hype cycles and do this frequently, where they will pivot. And they will say, okay, now our focus is on DeFi. We're becoming a DeFi company. If they didn't pivot, that ship has kind of sailed. And I think a lot of old stuff is going to be dead and pump and dump moving forward. So Seller, if you're asking like, hey, can you look at Sell? Well, Jake, what do we want to look at with Sell? Sell, this is Sell against BTC. This was the last time it's shown strength against BTC. This is going all the way back to August 2020. The entire time now it's been weak against BTC. Right? This is against a BTC chart, right? Do people trade Seller against USD? Maybe. Let's look at the USD chart, right? Same thing. The only thing that you could say is, like, this was your weekly low for a while, these weekly lows, this general area. You lost it and you reclaimed it. That was the buy signal all the way back there. That's the one that I always talk about, where you reclaim a weekly level. So you reclaimed it all the way back there. Now we're coming down. It's acting as support. But I need a significant amount of evidence to get involved in something like this. Like for Sell, what would you need to do for Sell? Well, for Sell, right, in terms of our weekly structure, now we're back below a prior weekly support. So you have that as resistance right above you. You need to have a significant amount of strength show up on the lower time frames below the weekly. And this is your highs on the daily. So something like that builds more of a case, but still, you're still at, higher time frame weekly resistance. And I just don't know how a lot of things like this end up doing really well in the near future until there's like that pump and dump cycle from retail again. Let's see, curve. This is a chart that I think is actually looking, why the fuck is my chart doing this? Excuse me. So this is a chart that I think is worth looking at, right? So curve, your most important levels in the chart. Where does your eye go to immediately? So you have your weekly levels. So we haven't made any new weekly lows, right? We were making weekly lows. We have 4 back-to-back weekly greens. Okay, looking down to the daily. What stands out on this chart? Well, your daily lows, right? Double bottom. Okay, and then your pivot up at the high where we came into and the market said, no, no, not yet. Right, so up here, upon returning, you should see a seller, right? Someone was imposing their will right there. So upon returning back to that level, you should see the same level of response. The fact that you're able to reclaim it means that that seller no longer, if that's one seller, if it's many, just that level is no longer an area that we need to contend with. We're looking for it to act as support. And this is compelling now because we certainly are, right? So now the trend is clearly changing. And I think that, you know, this is going to, again, being DeFi related, I think, or being DeFi, I think that this is going to be outperforming in the near future, right? And I would say that as long as you hold this prior weekly zone, right? Remember, it's a zone. So what we're doing ourselves a disservice if we actually just look at the lines, even though the lines are the easiest way to draw your attention, fastest way for me to do it too. So I think that you want to see this level maintained, okay? And you're getting the support there right now. So a lot of these positions, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that this market right now is a market that you need a tremendous level of precision in, right? I think it's a set and forget market. I think we're getting to a set and forget market. I know here, so I'll talk about me. I'm getting into a set and forget mode. Well, I'm getting into a set and forget mode with certain things, right? Not with everything. So I don't think that you should extrapolate on this to, or extend this to everything in the crypto universe. But with things that are strong, I think that you can afford to build a spot position to sort of not. You know what? People talk about dollar cost averaging, and I think it's like the most safe way to say anything publicly if you're a big trader or investor, you know, in the public eye, because you know, I'm not giving any financial advice, right? So you have to make sure that you are very careful with how you're wording things because you don't want to influence anyone's financial decisions. But me, when I spot something, okay, and I think that I have a good, you know, finger to the wind sort of feel with how things are moving, I don't see it as a good idea to dollar cost average into things, okay? Market's moving fast. I am 9 times out of 10 going to be doing myself a better service if I just say, all right, I like this chart. Like I want it to pull back over here, but you know, Bitcoin's at the all-time high now. Do I think that I could get more of a pullback? Yes. If we are in a case where Bitcoin breaks above the all-time high and this chart is still looking like it's maintained this level, I'm not going to dollar cost average in. I'm going to hit the offer really hard with a big amount, and I'm just going to set it. That's it. And I'm probably going to see that over time, that ends up suiting me better than if I was to say, all right, so let's just pick an arbitrary number. You know, I want to buy $100,000 worth of curve, okay? Should I space out, you know, over the next few weeks, you know, 10 different orders of 10,000 contracts, or, you know, of 10,000 broken in just by dollar amount, $10,000 orders, right? Should I do that or average in? No, I'm probably going to actually get the best price if I just mark it in, as long as we're making, you know, maintaining this level of support. Because what can happen is, you know, you bang on the first 20% of that, and the market's moving away, right? The market is responding to activity. The market is bullish. The market has tailwinds, and your dollar cost averaging in on the way up, and then your cost basis is sort of from here to here, versus if I just kind of, you know, think about like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Whatever. We just don't have it right now. Just, you know, suck it up and take the pain right now kind of thing. I think that chart is looking really good. Let's see. Sushi. This is a silly coin, right? This is something that is silly, but it is not silly on the chart, right? This is 2 weeks, 3 weeks right now in the green. I think that we're gonna, again, I think that this is now above pretty significant levels. So on the way down, where were the levels? Right? On the way down, where were the levels that were acting as support? Well, just from these levels alone, you see there's a major area of confluence right here. Retested that level. This level from let's say, you know, it's an so it's thin, from 113 and above, I think it's game time with sushi, right? I think that it is. I think that this goes on to perform quite well. Looking at SNX, this is one of my favorite children, right? This, I was in and out. For those of you that are members of BlockRoots, you guys know that I was kind of rebalancing this week, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out of SNX. I'm gonna get into USD from BTC. Then I'm gonna take away from Aave and SNX, and now I'm gonna put more in Aave, and now I'm gonna rebound. And it's like I wasted time, honestly. I wasted time. This is the problem in a bull market. Don't chop yourself up. Luckily, I didn't really lose anything at all, but because I actually got in a better entry on Aave anyway, and a better entry on SNX again. So thankfully. But you could chop yourself up on the way up, right? And you just slip, and you're gaining with the trend, but you're actually slipping in between. So SNX looking like I don't know, a bowl of Fruit Loops, looking awesome. I have like a soft spot for some sugary cereal. I don't eat it often, but every once in a while, my wife she'll rag on me because we'll be at the grocery store and I'll grab a box of like Lucky Charms. And I'll eat the box in like 2 days time. Who knows why? All right, so where is the I want to pull up SNX but the longer term chart, because I think this is worth looking at. SNX, where is it? No, come on. SNX, there we go. Nope. Yes. This trend is this is a beautiful trend, right? SNX was one of the first pairs that we shared in the BlockRoots newsletter, so I've gone over that before. This is just such a clear and clean trend, and exactly how a bullish trend will behave, where it's not coming back down to the prior level. It's getting bid up sooner. So a lot of the times, in a bullish trend, you could use fibs. People use fibs, and you'll see that, it's difficult to use something in progress, right? Because you're always wondering, is this the high? Is this a low? But if we're looking at sort of the high and the low of the structure, you're getting it into this sweet spot, right? Which is between the 382 and the 618. This is a really big extension. You're not seeing that the 618 is really being lost. In a strong trend, the initial impulses, you'll see that the 382 holds. But more importantly to me, and I've sort of talked about how it's so basic, but it's so important. The 20-period moving average, right? Clark indicator colors the bars. Moving average just shows you where it is. So the 20-period moving average, right? In the past, this is sort of a barometer to whether or not in the past, moving forward in the past, always. I use this for alts with weekly structure to define who's in control, because they are momentum assets. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling thing, as I've said, right? Momentum is there. Everyone's recognizing where it sits in terms of the trend, moving averages, higher time frame moving averages, and it just helps trigger that buying activity. So in the past, we've seen that. Let me take this and make it a little bit more solid and obvious. It's a dotted line, that's why. Okay, so in the past, we've lost the 20-period moving average. We've violated it, reclaimed it, lost it though, and then never reclaimed it. So in this case, we've violated it previously, or we violated it a few weeks ago, lost it, and now we're back above it. So this is a phenomenal sign for the trend. I think that this is just showing you that this is a trending asset, right? So it's just showing us the health of the trend. It is trending upward. 20-period is now, it is sloping back to the upside. If you're looking at this also, though, from a structural standpoint, you're back above this prior weekly swing low that we made on the way down. So again, in terms of my signaling mechanisms, in terms of the things that I prioritize, this is the most important thing. 20-period moving average is good, right? It's showing me what I already kind of know with the trend, right? It's turning the data into something that is very obvious. Okay, it's less subjective, but again, it's lagging. And a lot of the lagging indicators you could sort of pick up on without putting on the chart. When you're looking at a chart for long enough, you know where it kind of sits with relation to its 20-period moving average. That kind of sounds silly, but you just know when a trend is really extended, when it's sort of moving gracefully at that normal or healthy rate of speed. So this is now, put in a very nice weekly structure on the daily too. So we go to the daily. Just look at the consolidation that we put in on the way down. It's a downtrend, right? But it is kind of orderly, right? It was not ridiculously violent at any point, stair-stepping on the way down, and then very cleanly retaking market structure to the upside, back above the 20-period. And again, that last high we put in on the way down, you see that hold, and it's game on, right? It is a lot of times game on for the altcoins. So I think that this, I could sit here and say, context is king, that whole idea. Context right now means knowing that these levels are there, but knowing that it's a manageable point and not a, TP, I'm taking the whole position off kind of point. If we are in a bearish trend and I still have a spot bag, I'm grateful to take the position off at higher time frame resistance. In a bullish trend, I'm grateful to see that we have, sounds silly, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every opportunity you give me to add to the position. I'm happy to manage the position, right? Keep an eye on it there. And what a lot of the times for me, that means adding to it and compounding it, right? So that is something to keep in mind. But I think that a lot of these are going to just, what are they going to do? They're going to continue to make new highs. We're probably stepping into a long bull market, right? So congrats for all of those who have stayed here. Okay, so carb loading, bro. Serial's carb load time. Yeah, but you know what I do, Jake? What my post-workout carb a lot of time is in the winter is a Pop-Tart. I love Pop-Tarts. Right after workout, nice strawberry Pop-Tart. Get the blood sugar going. Get the blood sugar back up, right? Drink some creatine with that. Get a little spikier insulin. Okay, so Uni and BCH. All right, so Uni, I think we went over Uni, right? Yeah, Uni we went over. So if you watched it earlier, we went over Uni. BCH, it's hard for me to rag on BCH when, I don't know why I would be ragging on it. I'm not ragging on it, but it's hard for me to say anything negative about it because in the same light, I was talking about LTC, and LTC is looking better now, though Bitcoin Cash actually is looking like shit. It's not looking like shit. It's just not doing anything, right? It's consolidating. It's forming this pennant. This is maybe a lagging play on Litecoin, but I think the further you go with these laggards, the more weakness it is just showing you. It's like the last one to move is maybe the one that you want to bet least on. So Litecoin is kind of one of the later ones to move, but it is moving now. Bitcoin Cash, what would be the same setup as Litecoin? I think it is, clearly here is a daily swing high, but I think Bitcoin Cash, you want to see that it is back above. So this is the weekly. You want to see that Bitcoin Cash is back above something like 284, 305 kind of area, because then you're at least changing this structure. Okay, it hasn't been able to make a higher weekly high. So almost lost my voice there. So yeah, any other charts, guys? I mean, let's look at BTC right now. Pretty orderly. Nothing, no real cause for concern. Right? The thing about Bitcoin, so in these pop-up opportunities, like I get very excited, but I will, if we pop up like this, right? So we're above this swing high. We pop up like that. I'm paying a lot of attention to, let's go to something like XO. I'll just put on a higher time frame chart so you guys can see it right away. I'm paying a lot of attention to where most of the activity came in this pop. So we see that in this breakup, we're above the high, which is, where is the high? This is on Bybit. So the high is really, it's right around, let's say 500. So 500 line right there. We're above this high, right? So we see all that aggressive buying activity coming in. So what you're looking at is a bunch of imbalances. You're seeing a lot of activity everywhere, right? There's a lot of people just aggressively selling this as well. There's a bid right there, though. So all that aggressive selling, the fact that it's able to move higher, okay? So the fact that you have all of this on the left side and it's moving higher means that the order book was moving up with this and that this selling was unable to push the market further down, right? To a large extent. In this case, it capped off the top side movement. But one thing I want to pay attention to in a time like this immediately is if we have all of this aggressiveness on the right side, all right? If we have all of that and have all of that increase in delta, so big buying activity, I want to make sure that that level is maintained because I don't want to see now that after all of this activity comes into the market that we lose support, right? Because then all of these positions that are long, they're probably going to consider unwinding if they got in a little bit later, right? And then you'll get something that looks like, and you have to guard against this and just be careful. You end up longing something above here, it falls back below this low, and then you know what it looks like. You get a big wick, right? And it runs those positions, these positions unwind and puke because they got in late. The good thing about this right now is that there's actually a lot of selling that's coming in, right? So we're looking for absorption now to the downside. So down here on the top side of that range, you want to see absorption. So on the left-hand side of this, there's a ton of selling activity that's below the candle. What that means is that for all the selling, this candle was actually able to close right here above that activity. So you have negative 13 million contracts sold at the bid, total volume 56 million, so high relative volume, high activity into that level, and it's holding. So right now you want to see that that level still maintains that level of strength. You know, because you could have a pretty decent pullback, right? We're excited, right? We know that we're very certain the all-time high is coming very soon, but it doesn't mean that the top can't come, you know, an intermittent top can't come before that. Okay. So ETH. All right, I'll look at ETH. Zonda. We don't talk politics here, man. Trump or Biden, Trump or Biden. We don't talk politics. We just talk money. Okay, so this is, you know, ETH over 500 is fantastic. I mean, look at what you have for ETH in terms of higher time frame resistance. None. Back here, major levels that are now, you know, major contextual level this entire point. So this is a awesome retest. You know, it didn't look nice. It didn't look that great initially. There was a lot of chopping around here, but it's almost like ETH is maybe the laggard, right, to BTC, which had that big support and resistance flip back here, and it was choppy and it was loose, and it went on to move upward dramatically. I think maybe ETH is, and I've talked to Dave and I, we know we had a conversation about this, I think it was you and I, about ETH lagging maybe, right? ETH is taking Bitcoin's, is following Bitcoin maybe. So, you know, ETH right now above this major weekly level, I think that ETH is coming up to around 760, 750, hands down. I definitely think that. Could it chop around? Yes. Maintaining this level, is it important? Yeah, it is. If you're taking short-term trades, if not, you know, closing back below here would not be a death knell for the trend. You probably see that you'd return back down to this 432 level, but we'll see. Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, however you pronounce it. Okay, so Wi-Fi. This looks you know, looks good, but it's basically back at a level higher time frame resistance. And considering the distance it has to higher time frame resistance where it currently sits, right? So right here, you know, this is I would be waiting for a pullback for this. It's sort of like the same thing as Wi-Fi, you know, Yearn Finance, the one that is primary Yearn Finance. You're seeing that there's a laggard leader play with the Wi-Fi's, right? And if main Wi-Fi pulls back, this probably will as well. But again, it's back above a level that would act as resistance, but we're still kind of in that pocket. So I'd be careful with this. Trend though, same as all the rest. It's moving up. I think it is lagging, D. I think it is, man. I mean, when you look at this, it's almost like this looks just patently I want to say it's patently obvious, but this retest, you know, major retest, and the idea that it was kind of loose in the past. Right, so kind of loose area, but obviously a very important level, going back very far, so going back all the way back to here. So it's loose around there. There's a lot of selling into that. You got all those wicks. It just reminds me of this BTC chart. It just reminds me of, you know, this back here. You know, this is loose because, you know, prior you had a few different depths of this movement upward in terms of how far it went. Downside was choppy, and I think that it is lagging, honestly. I think that, you know, sky looks like it's the limit with ETH. You know, Bitcoin broke above its sky's the limit area, and I think that ETH will probably follow. So ETH is, you know, I'd say with ETH, just expect volatility. But if you're in a spot position, I think you're experiencing some upside. Algo, and then we're like hour and a half into this, guys. Probably going to end up trimming this soon. Algo, yeah, you know, I don't know. This doesn't look that good. So weekly, just keeping it honest. So you already had your big trade that's behind you. You're returning back to it now. So if we were talking back in May and June, we'd be like, okay, this is fantastic. We pointed this out in the newsletter too. So I think this is one of the first things we shared, going back into the first few newsletters, support and resistance flip, right? And then target of this high. So now we're on the tail end of that, returning back there. So could you find support here? Yes. a lot of these things, I think they need that new major retail rush to think that they're awesome for them to pump again. Otherwise, they're not DeFi, right? I don't think Algo's DeFi, right? So, yeah, I did check Wi-Fi. So D, I did check Wi-Fi. This is very strong trend, but I would personally rather get involved in Wi-Fi and a pullback now. But I checked that earlier in the video. Okay, and then I checked seller already. Check seller, Ox, and then that'll wrap it up. So if I check something already, guys, you're going to have to roll back. For the sake of time, I'm not going to just go over it again. So again, you have your weekly level these are all old trades at this point, right? Old opportunities. So you have a weekly level resistance. I don't know how you would get involved in that. If we look down on the daily, there's probably some level of acceptance above it. This big break, right? That's not really giving you much time to get involved. But the idea is that that's already done. So we're revisiting that level now after already putting in a big pump. So you're going to look for that behavior to occur again. So you're going to start to redraw this, right? Go back to the drawing board. This should act as higher time frame support. But now where's your next weekly level of resistance? Well, on the way down, bouncing on the way down, you probably need to see that you're back above that 25, 26 level to really make a case for the upside again. But these things, I would just put them I'd put them like in the recesses of your mind right now. I don't think that they are worth prioritizing. There's so many things right now, guys, that are looking awesome. So just, in this type of market environment, like it's always really important to know what kind of environment you're in. So for those who have been in the market for a really long time, awesome, right? For me, it's been incredible 3.5 years. You have a bull market, you have a bear market, you have every market cycle that is compressed into this time period. It's the most credible experience in terms of market experience. For those people that are just entering in right now, Godspeed to you, because it's going to be tough it is tough in a bull market because you see all these things moving and you're like, oh my God, I want to be in something like, I'm chasing momentum. You jump into that thing. You jump into everything as it is cooling down almost. That's how you're going to feel. You jump into something, it's moving up, and then when you get in it, it seems like it stops moving. And then the next thing moves up, and it's like you're playing this game of, what's the game at the fairs? The whack-a-mole. You're like chasing something, right? But it's always getting away from you, okay? Right now, really try to, if I'm just going to say something that really works for me, identify things with really strict criteria, right? Higher time frame trend criteria, weekly structure, higher time frame, weekly 20-period moving average. Everything that doesn't fall within that right now, create a separate watch list. Maybe check this. It's like if you're rating them like bonds, it'd be like you have your triple A's, your double A's, your B's. Prioritize things based on strength. Everything that is strong now will probably continue to persist with strength moving forward. Okay, it's the idea of selection. All right, it's the idea of momentum, serial correlation. What is continuing to show strength right now higher prices will create higher prices sort of behavior. Right, so the past price behavior it has an effect on future price behavior. So things that are novel, things that are new now, things that are that there's a narrative for, that they're viral. These things are worth prioritizing, especially if they have, if they're strong looking in terms of structure. All things that are, old and sort of, I have a bag in this. It is what it is, right? There are people that I make fun of it all the time, and I don't care about making fun of it because XRP it's just showing you in so many ways that it is not anything right now besides maybe a trade, right? It's been showing weakness relative to BTC. Look at this tape right now. Tape speed's awesome. It's showing weakness relative to BTC. And this is a Bitcoin market right now. This is a DeFi market. So know who your leaders are, right? Why would you want to be on the horse that is not running fast? And we'll take this to a horse race. Why would you want to pick the losing horse? It's been losing every race. What are you going to think that, what you're saying when you pick a losing horse right now is that you think that it's the most important race to be in right now. That you have, let's say that we're approaching actually a ton of opportunities. So, right now there's a ton of opportunities ahead of us. It's like we have 100 horse races to run ahead of us. And you have a list of all the fastest horses in the world, okay? And you don't have to get it right too many times, but that if you kind of just threw darts at a board for the top 20 horses, you'd probably do well in those 100 races to some degree, right? Your returns would be distributed. Maybe, they would have a decent distribution, but you'd perform better than if you picked the shittiest horse, right? You're looking for, if you're picking the shittiest horse, like to be the statistical outlier that's in every sample, right? There's always going to have that one outlier, that one period, but it's not going to make up for all the other periods where it underperforms. So that is what you're doing when you're marrying into something that is clearly just not being accepted, right? And when I say not being accepted, it's a Bitcoin market right now. It's a DeFi market. If you're not doing well against ETH, if you're not doing well against Bitcoin, if you're not doing well against Wi-Fi or Alt Perp or DeFi Perp Index or Uni Perp Index, those 5 things, if you're not doing well against them, you're not doing well, right? You're betting on, you're hoping, okay? You're not making evidence-based decisions. And there's a really popular, he's a neuroscientist. His name is, what is his name? He's an awesome guy. He's got dreads. He was on Joe Rogan. He says, I do not abide by people who do not follow by the rules of evidence. Like, I don't get in conversations with them. Well, that's my kind of feeling with people with XRP. It's like, against Bitcoin, it's been in a secular downtrend. Right? And you're just going to assume that it's going to change its mind suddenly sometime soon? It's people that need to change their mind, right? And they're not changing their mind. And as we say this, XRP might for the first time be making decent market structure to the upside. But again, don't get stuck in shitty stuff right now. That's my point. That's my straight to the point, New York style delivery. Don't get stuck in shitty shit. So, all right. Okay, Orchid. All right. So honestly, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. It's been a good. I think it's been a good stream, and I wish you guys all the best. Like I said, identify who's winning right now. People that come into this market, when we break the all-time high, then you could probably look at Coinbase and look at things that are cheap. My opinion. So how I will operate, once we break the all-time high, we start settling. I know that there's an amount of time it takes for people to get onto Coinbase, to get their bank set up. All these things take there's a little bit of a lag, right? There's one, it takes a second for the market to disseminate everything that's just occurred. 2, there's actually a lag to people actually getting into the plumbing of getting on an exchange, being able to deploy capital. I know that then I'll just be market buying things that are cheap, right? Oh, 25 cents? Buy. Oh, $1.50? Buy, because I'm going to be buying based on other people coming on and saying, oh, Bitcoin's expensive. Shit, I can't buy Bitcoin. Oh my God, you could buy a fraction of Bitcoin? I wish I knew that, right? So that's that, guys. Everyone have a fantastic, I'm just here to trade it. Yeah, you know what? We have many affairs in this market. We don't marry anything. Everyone have a fantastic evening. I will talk to you all on Monday. We'll be doing another stream then.